So I'm going to say hi and welcome to the Adversity Psychologist Podcast. I'm Dr. Tara Quinterillo, and today I have a really different guest. This is really exciting. So I have Lyndsey Clay, who is the founder of Connected Brighton. Do you want to say hello and a little bit about you and who you are, and perhaps what's brought you on today as well?
Hello. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation, having listened to some of your other podcasts and seen your other guests. So I feel very honoured to have asked to be here. So thank you, Tara. So yes, I am Lyndsey Clay and I founded Connected Brighton. We are a city concierge service in Brighton and Hove. We focus very much on connecting people to business and business to people by supporting local.
Which I was just drawn into when I heard about you. So we met through a mutual friend, didn't we? Not that long ago, actually. And I was so interested in what you do because as a psychologist myself, I'm just interested in loneliness and connection and kind of harnessing what we have. And I thought, here we have someone who's really innovative, who's kind of doing that, but you're also connecting the businesses. And that's the element I want to bring in. So you're helping so many different levels of the community, aren't you, as well?
Yes. And that's what's been so exciting about Connected, because originally I started it because I needed it. So the whole seed of the idea came from the lockdown. So in lockdown, everything shifted. I mean, for so many people, isn't it? It's a classic story
absolutely.
now. But my lockdown story was that I was in the biggest job I've ever had. I was being made redundant. I moved back into a contract job in a business that I'd worked for over 10 years previously. Felt really comfortable, and I suddenly had a chance to think, because when I was in this big corporate job, it was so intense and it was so pressured. I was just head down every day into my job. Like my relationships and friendships suffered for that because there was such pressure to perform.
Really?
And loads. And then when I got made redundant in lockdown, and then I went back to the contract job, I suddenly had a moment to think, actually, what is life going to look like when lockdown ends? And I suddenly realized that everything had changed for me. So all my friends, and that had already been brewing for a long time because I got divorced back in 2017. And so I was single. I don't have children. All my friends are in relationships or families. And I've always been very career driven. So I had money to spend, but I didn't have anyone to spend it with. And I realized that I had daytime friends when lockdown ended, but I didn't have people that wanted to go out for dinner or cocktails or to put money back in the city again. And I desperately wanted to do that. I was watching my favorite businesses pivot in every direction, and I was doing my weekly takeaways and, the picnic boxes from the pub, whatever I could do. I thought, I can't make a difference on my own, but maybe I could make a difference in a group. And surely I can't be the only person that feels this way, that in my 40s needs new friends. And to your point about psychology, it's really confronting to need new friends when you're over 30. I think in your sort of teens and 20s, you expect this like changing social circle and you're going to be out and about and it's all super exciting. And then you get to a point where you feel like you should just have a group and that's your group. And I think the mini heartbreaks that come from friendships that end or have to ebb and flow can be really hard.
Yeah. There's something about kind of grief there, but also that sometimes it's okay. Excuse me, it's all right that some friendships do need to end. They might not be working for you now. But we were talking just before we hit record about this, weren't we? And I think that's really interesting, that it's okay to revise who's in your life. It's okay to look at what's working and what's not, and having those difficult conversations with yourself.
Yeah, it's a classic season, reason, lifetime, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's some people that I really thought were lifetimers who weren't. And I've really had a deep grief over those people. But also I realized that I've changed a lot over time. They changed a lot over time. And it's like with any relationship, I think we don't always recognize that heartbreak that comes from friendships. But in the same way, and they were not with the boyfriends we first met in our 20s either. Well, most people, some people have married them, obviously. But for those of us who aren't, it's really normal for those relationships to ebb and flow.
Absolutely. And having so like as we're doing now, having the conversation about that. So we were also talking before we hit record. I did a couple of articles during the pandemic actually on exactly this, kind of looking at boundaries in your relationships, including your friendships, your peers, work colleagues, but also that it's okay that if a relationship isn't working for you, that you look at that and you address it. That just because that friend, as you say, you may have been through loads of things at school, you could look back at that and that part with kindness and compassion, but it might not work for you now. No. But sometimes I think British society particularly, I don't think we're great at doing that. We're quite rigid and rule bound. These are my friends and I should, that's my pack, as you say, and I've got to stick with it.
And I'll put up with it forever.
Absolutely. So kind of during the lockdown then, what did you notice in yourself? Is that all right to ask? What were you
Yes.
needing from people in life, and maybe what weren't you needing as well? Because I always like that question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, I wasn't very happy in my career. So I was really enjoying the contract that I was doing because it was back in a really safe space for me, in a company that I'd worked for a long time before, and I knew everybody. And I'd come back into that feeling very different because I'd had 2 years in kind of big corporate, and then I'd gone back into public sector, and I had a completely different eye on everything.
Yeah.
But what I wasn't sure was what this meant next. So this was just a temporary contract. So it was a classic, I don't know what I want, but I know it's not this.
Yes.
And there was a part of me that really wanted to stay in that job, but the person who I was covering was definitely coming back. So that wasn't an option. Did I want to do that in another organization? Not so sure. So I was definitely going through a transition of what is life going to look like for me professionally. Being single, there's also that what is life going to look like for me personally.
Yeah.
And then there's also been all of these shifts in my friendships, and I felt lonely. I really rebel against the word lonely because as somebody that has been single for a long time, I think there's a massive difference between feeling lonely and being alone.
Yeah. It's a really good thing to bring in, actually.
Yeah, and I've always kind of rebelled against saying that I feel lonely because I didn't want to look like that. Felt to me like I was failing, because people look at me like, oh, why, poor thing, she hasn't got a boyfriend. They'd never kind of acknowledge anything else. They're like, oh, but you don't have a boyfriend, poor thing.
It's got negative connotations to it.
Yeah, but there's loads of brilliant. I always say it should feel like win-win. When you're single, you should really lap up the freedom and the fun that you can have going by your own rules. And when you're with someone, it should be a total joy that you align and share values and you have a great time. There's nothing is better or worse or less. It's just different. And so I was kind of going through that in my head of, what do I want to do for work when this ends? What is the world even going to look like when this ends? What will the options even be? Who do I want to be now? And who do I need around me? And I thought, actually, what I really need is people who want to do the same things. I want people who align with my value system. I really want to be a positive force for good in my community. And how do I do that? And I've had to really dig deep into the person that I've become now. And I'm so grateful to be this version of Lyndsey Clay. And there's more versions to come. And I can't wait to meet her too. But I'm completely different.
That.
Yeah, I'm completely different to the woman I was back in 2017 when my marriage was ended and I was going on my divorce tour to try and recover. It's taken, I've had to chip away to get to this today. But Connected Brighton has completely changed my life forever. And I'm so grateful that I had the idea and I couldn't not do it. There's been 2 times in my life where I've had ideas and I had to physically get it out. And Connected was the second time I'd had that feeling. So I knew I had to follow it and I couldn't stop. And
that instinct,
that calling. Like I always say to people, like, if you hear a calling, it's calling you for a reason and you need to listen.
Yeah, I like that.
And it'll get louder until you actually listen to it, I've found. So
pay attention. You need to do this.
Yeah, you can only ignore it for so long. And so I had that originally with a blog I wrote about my infertility and my divorce and the impact that had on my mental health. And I really wanted to share that story because I felt very passionate that I was not the blueprint in my world. So all my friends were married with kids. All my friends had really wanted kids and they'd had kids. And then I had friends who really didn't want kids. And so they didn't have kids. I didn't want kids, but I tried to have kids because I felt the social pressure to have kids. And I had a broody husband. And everyone around us was like, when are you having kids? And I thought, oh, one day I'll have to do this. This will have to be a thing, even though I was very career driven. And then when we went to do it, turned out that I can't have kids. So we had to go to IVF. And that's probably a whole other conversation we might have on this show or later.
Yeah, do you know what? I was just thinking that because I haven't covered that before.
Yeah, so that's another kind of an enormous angle to this because I didn't really always see the link at the time. So that was a really deep grief for me at the time because I went through that process in order to, be a good wife and save my marriage and give my husband what he wanted and what society was telling me I was meant to do. And then I ended up having a miscarriage and a divorce. And I was like, oh, great. So I lost everything. So I tried to do what I thought I was meant to do, which was an amazing lesson in when you don't follow your truth, it will all go horribly wrong. So authenticity to me now is that is rooted in my core of if I'm not being authentic to myself, this is not going to work. And I've had to allow that side of me to really come out and breathe and shine. And that's what's really got me here, because by talking about that and being vulnerable, that's what's really resonated with people. And it's also been very healing for me to say, this didn't go right, and this was all gone horribly wrong, and this is how I feel about it, and actually this is how I feel about it now. And if I share that story with you, it might help you or somebody that you know to reach out to me who also has that experience because of that. And I had this, like, I have to share this story. And I remember lying in bed and just thinking, how am I going to do this? And I thought, maybe I'll do an Instagram and I'll just write about it. So I'll do some pictures. I'll put my face in it, because I think it's really important to put your face to infertility and not hide. And so I just woke up. I was like, I'm going to do this. And I thought, what will I call myself? And I thought, I'm not the social blueprint, not the blueprint. And I found the handle straight away. And the first post I wrote says, my hand just breached the rubble. I've survived. And then I basically took everybody on this healing journey with me on that Instagram. And I went traveling and did my divorce tour, my snack, nap, hope tour, as I like to call it, an ode to eat, love, pray. And I just kind of healed in real time with the people around me. And I had this really amazing response to it. And I got to a point where I found it too hard to talk about for a little while. And so I sort of put that to bed, really proud that it was out there and people would use it. And I did a speech at a show called Belong Con, where I had a 10-minute talk that was on YouTube. And I'm really proud of everything I did with Not the Blueprint. But I got to a point where it was too painful. And I stepped away, focused on my career. Then when the idea of Connected Brighton came along, I didn't see the link between Not the Blueprint and Connected. I just thought, well, I'm going to help my city and I'm going to get people together. And isn't that a beautiful thing? And then I realized, actually, I wouldn't be here trying to help people have connection, because I need it, if I hadn't gone through a divorce and IVF and my entire social circle had shifted, because I was career driven and I wasn't in the city to nurture my friendships because I had the freedom to, because I don't have a family. So all of the journey that I had led me to be in a position where I needed Connected Brighton for myself. And I always say I set my business up because I needed it, and I still need it because I still have a changing social circle. I love the people that come out with me. You know, they validate my story, I validate theirs. The number of people that contact me and say, your story is my story. I've ended up feeling how you feel for different reasons. And thank you so much for talking about this, because it feels like a taboo when it's not, because the more I've talked about it, the more common it is.
So much. I've got so much I want to ask. There's almost another 3 or 4, because there's something there about, authenticity. There's almost an episode there in itself. And that, historically, if it's all right to say, sometimes talking about your personal story, even since I've started my career, was a kind of a sign of weakness, or people don't do that. The kind of keep calm, carry on kind of British culture that we have. But we're in this lovely age now where people are starting to share, but also genuinely being okay with sharing and recognizing that it's actually good for their own well-being. And what I really love as well, you just said there that when you started up Connected Brighton, it wasn't just about who you can help, but actually it was something that was really valued to you. And I'm wondering, is it all right to ask, and does that help you run it and put the energy that's needed into it? Because you have that connection with the business. It's not just about the end result for other people.
Oh yeah, I always joke that I am my avatar for Connected Brighton. So people are like, how do you choose what you want to do? And I'm like, it's because I want to do it, and I want you to come with me.
I like that.
Let's do it together. So I understand what it feels like to, I was looking at things to do. So there was Meetup. I didn't want to do Meetup because I wanted to do things that I wanted to pay for. I wanted to put money into cool places. I also wanted to go out and do really fancy things, and I just didn't have anyone to do fancy things with. And I didn't want to do it dating, because that might be like one date where you go and have a great meal, somewhere in Brighton, and then you don't get to go back there again. And I don't want to have a string of, or I'm not having a great connection, but I've had a lovely meal. I was like, no, I know that there's a market for this, which isn't about a singles club, and it's not about dating. It's about connection, and it's connection with men and women. I've had amazing friendships with men, and that they've been very different to my female friendships. And so I felt very passionate that I wanted it to be a mixed gender group. There's lots of female only groups, and I appreciate they have their place, and I'm grateful they exist for the people that need them. I don't need them. I really love mixed gender spaces. I think that's really positive for men and women to be friends.
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, because I think actually, again, there's not many people would say actually that it's okay to have friendships with the opposite sex, and then it can work really well, and it can be really fulfilling, and it can be so much value as well.
And so many people have said that to me. They miss their male friend, where their social
Yeah.
circles have shifted as well. They're like, I really miss my male mates, and I just want some male friends. And, we definitely have more women come than guys. We're working on that.
Yes. Okay.
But the guys that we have are like real gentlemen, and I feel so grateful that we attract them. They're not. I heard lots of horror stories from Meetup of, even like the hosts trying to pull everybody, or if they don't fancy them on the leads.
Yeah, so the kind of boundary issues, I guess, that makes people feel safe and gets back to that connection. Is it right to ask then, before I lose the thought, are there barriers to men using Connected Brighton and getting on board with it?
No, not at all. We try and make sure that it's really mixed activity. So we do something every week. So we did wine tasting this week. We've got a Thai dinner the week after. We've got a private movie screening the week after that for Dirty Dancing, because it's February, so it's love month. And we're going out for a roast dinner. So it's not like we're saying, we haven't got anything that I would say is like one gender or another.
But it appeals to everybody
as
well. And I'm wondering, for them reaching out, because we know historically men do find it harder to connect with emotions and sometimes to reach out and maybe even to recognize that that's something that could benefit them. Is that something you've seen through Connected Brighton, that sometimes it is harder for guys to feel able to sign up, come along, meet people?
I wonder if it's a really interesting question, and I've asked it a lot. Of why don't we attract as many men? But it seems to be that all the social groups are the same, so it's not a sort of Connected Brighton specific. It's the same on our singles nights. We have a separate singles brand called the Single Sessions, because Connected Brighton is all about friendship. And although we did start our singles nights through the group, it was a bit incestuous, because it's just all the members came out, and I was thinking like, oh, this could go really good or really bad. So now we have a separate singles brand, and there's got really great guys I know that I've met on dating apps. We become friends, and I'm like, oh, come to our singles night, and they're like, absolutely not. I would never do anything like that. Whereas women turn up in their droves and they're incredible, and then the guys, we roughly get about 50-50 now, because we've been around for a little while.
People are hearing about it.
Yeah, it's taken some work, but there's still some reticence from guys to come to those things. And I don't know if it's because they think, oh, I don't need that. I don't have to do that. I'll be all right. I'll do it. I'll find it somewhere else. Or there's a shame in it somewhere. I don't know, but that's why I do, if anyone follows me on Connected Brighton, we do tons of footage and loads of reels of what we're doing, so that you can see the people that are there.
That's what I like. So I did a bit of extra stalking this week, because I was like, what was it that really resonated with me when I kind of met you and then looked at your social media? But they're not kind of, is it all right to say, they're not staged pictures, are they? They're not kind of, here we are with a sign, Connected Brighton meeting. It's you guys doing your stuff, and I don't know, for me, it's just very real, and I kind of think, what's that like for someone else who's thinking about it, to go, that's what it can look like, rather than the good old inner critic saying this is how it might be, and
exactly.
It might not be for me.
People have said to me that was a really important part of them signing up, was that they could see the people and what they look like. And so the people that might be triggered by how they look, they saw that everybody is all different ages, all different backgrounds. They were like, oh, okay, I'm not going to feel like I'm an odd one out here. People who were worried about their age, they're like, oh no, look, there's somebody else who's my age there. This is going to be fine, or my gender that are there. And just showing the things that we do and how we do them. That's the other thing. I think it's really important. Representation really matters, and so I've tried to make sure that we show that, and we try and encourage people to come out with us and try us out. We're drifting in a small group as well, which is another really important, that safe space and the boundary that you mentioned. Because I host everything at the moment, and we do have other people that do the odd thing for us, but majority that I host them. And so I want to be able, I give everybody a big hug. We do it in a maximum of 12. For some events, it might be a smaller number. So give you a big hug, introduce you, make sure that I'll move you around. There's something for us to do, something for us to talk about. Give you a big hug when you go. So if the worst case scenario, you might just have one really lovely night, and you might have got what you needed, and that's all you got. But I make sure that we hold a really safe space for people in order to connect, so it's not intimidating. You're made to feel very welcome. I have this whole thing about feeling seen, heard, and special. That's always what I want for people when you come to an event. And we did a focus group and asked our members what was it they liked about Connected, and a big part of that was how I made them feel, because I did give them that big hug, and I did notice if they weren't in the conversation, and I helped to move them around and make them feel more comfortable. I noticed them, and I noticed all of them. I remember all their names, and that sounds quite basic, doesn't it? But it means a lot to them and to me that they feel that way, and everyone feels that way. Whether you've come out with me 100 times or it's your first time, that's how I want you to feel. and I'm really passionate about it, because I completely appreciate the vulnerability you've had to go through to cross the threshold. You know how they said at the heaviest weight at the gym is the front door?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Connected.
Absolutely.
You know, 99.9% of people will come on their own because they're coming because they don't have a friendship group.
Yeah.
So they're not coming in group. And actually, people who come in pairs or threes, they won't have as good an experience because they'll be relying on the person with them. And
that's a really good point, isn't it? Yeah.
They won't have that vulnerability. And so you lose something if you're not vulnerable when you come.
And do you know what? So touching on the difficult thing, and this is something I really wanted to talk to you about, is the kind of hidden signs. It's so interesting. You said earlier on that, you know, the kind of word loneliness is a bit loaded. It's a really important thing to talk about. But some people, I find with the community project that I run, which there's some kind of similarities I'm realizing now in terms of how we help people to feel safe and secure when they come along. I run walk and talks in my local area for people to connect. But sometimes it's a massive barrier for people to come. So we show them what it looks like. You make them feel special and safe in order to get that, you know, what they need from it, really. But sometimes people don't know they're lonely, and sometimes people might think that everything's okay. And what's really struck me about what you do, and I hope I've got this right, so let me know, is this isn't just about I am single or living on my own. This could be for people who don't even realize they're lonely, if that makes sense. So many people are still working at home, probably thinking, oh, I've Zoomed or Teamed loads of people today, I'm not disconnected. You can be in a relationship but disconnected from your community or society. You can have a poor quality relationship. You can live with someone but needing that extra. And I'm just thinking how many people that you can target, people looking for friendship, people at different stages of life even, and what they need.
And it's so fascinating. This is a really important point, because I felt more lonely when I've been in the wrong relationships than I have ever done on my own.
Yeah, that's
for
so
sure.
Interesting. Yeah.
And my assumption when I started Connected was that it would be for other single people like me who wanted to meet cool people who were on their level, who were like-minded and wanted to do the same stuff and could afford to do the same stuff, because I wanted, as I mentioned, to put money back in. So it was doing the good stuff. And then what happened was I remember having a really lovely couple turn up to one of our first events who just moved to Brighton, and they'd been reading my newsletter, which I remember that had like 3 people, and now it's got nearly 2,000 people on it. And we'd talk about the city and what there is to do, and give our advice and our recommendations. And they just really loved the newsletter, and they wanted to come down and meet us and say hi, and it really helped them acclimatise. And we've had couples who've moved to the city. One has moved to the city for someone, and so they come out with us because they want to create their own friendship group. Or like this couple, they're both here, they don't know anyone, they want to create a new friendship group. We've had people of all different ages. We've had students up to people who are retired who've come out with us, in singles and couples or half a couple. I've also sadly had quite a few widows come out with us, but they come out with us because it's a safe space. It's not about meeting a partner, it's about enjoying life.
And that's what I like.
So it's literally been everybody, and I did not necessarily think about that, because I just thought, if I need this, someone else must need this, and let's see what happens. I assumed it would just be other single people, but it hasn't been at all. And actually the power of that dynamic is really important, because it's not a singles club, it's a people's club. And therefore, when you come in, you're coming to make a connection and enjoy the activity and the experience. You're not coming in to see if your life partner might be at this event. And that changes how you approach the situation, for sure.
It really does. Absolutely. But it also, I'm wondering whether that just aligns with so many more values, because there can be a lot of pressure, can't there, in dating? I've got to go and I've got to meet, and what if I haven't? And I'm wondering if some people that go along to specific dating events might almost put kind of goals. Well, if I haven't met someone in 4 times, I won't go again. And we were talking maybe just before we hit record that actually we're both in our 40s, that if you're at a time, I have kids, as your kids are getting older and they need you less, there is this demographic. And we had a mutual friend that we were talking about, he's going to come along to you, and it just made me think a little bit more, talking to that person, about what do we need when our life starts to change a little bit, and how we might want to revise some of the friendships we have. That's okay. And for me, that's what really resonated about Connected Brighton. I wish we had something similar in Horsham, or I'm going to have to move, but just that you get a chance to meet new people, interesting people, but there's no pressure. You're decided. There's loads of autonomy there, isn't there, as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where we try and do really different activities, because you'll pick up different people. So, there's other groups that you can join where, you know, they do the same activity every week or they go to the same place every week, and that consistency is what you're looking for. Whereas what we've tried to say is we want to help you make the best of the city you've decided to call home, whether that's because you were born here or you moved here, and we want to explore it with you. Let's go and be tourists together. We do things with Brighton Pier, or one of our club members, and so we do things on the pier. I love doing stuff on the pier. I think it's great. And we've had people come out with us to watch the commemorations and grab fish and chips, and they've lived here for a really long time and they've never been on the pier.
Wow.
And I think that's crazy. Like, we're doing like behind the scenes tours at the Royal Pavilion. We've done walking tours across the city, as well as trying out all these amazing bars and restaurants and cocktail hubs and places that people are like, oh, I never knew this place existed. And I love that. And we make sure it's all curated for you. It's locally led, it's bespoke, obviously it's personally hosted. So it's a real experience. And I think from lockdown, what everybody craved after that was experience. We wanted to make the most of life. We wanted to grab it. And back to your point again about home working, because that was another reason why Connected was a perfect timing, because we weren't making the connections that we were at work. You know, a lot of my friendship circle previously would always come from work. But in this big corporate job I had, I was going to London and Staines every week. Obviously now I wasn't going to London and Staines every week. I wasn't being able to meet anybody in person. So
which is important, isn't it? That is important for our well-being, that physical connection, being in the space.
Connection.
Yeah.
And that's again the point about why I gave everybody a big hug, because it's like physical touch as a human being is really important. And some people will say to me that that's the only hug I've had today. And so I'll be like, bring it in, let's have another one, because it's important. But it might be the only hug I've had that day. I live on my own as well, you know. And I now love it because I watch the members. They sort of like queue up to give me a hug, but they hug each other because I've made it safe to do that, because we're not trying to pull each other. Because it's not a singles club, it's a people's club, and it's for people that are like-minded, and we tend to attract lots of city professionals and business owners, and therefore they kind of get it. They'll have a similar lifestyle, they'll have a similar pressure, they might have similar backgrounds, but they're interesting and they're interested in each other, which is another like really key point. We make it so it's really easy to get conversation going, because we're always doing something that's worth talking about. And that's
and just having interesting conversations. I'm all about interesting. I like talking to people where there are interesting conversations, you know. And I think one of the things I've noticed, right, to say as a mum, is that sometimes conversations can direct straight to your kids, or you know what's going to happen next with them, and you don't necessarily get those, or what I call, it doesn't have to be intellectually stimulating, but just thinking about different things, and then realizing that you've lost sight of that because you've been parenting for so long, for example, or if you're at home and you're just working and you're on Zooms constantly, it's much harder. And I did notice during the pandemic to put boundaries on how you work when you work at home. You know, I just squeeze another Zoom or another Teams in. People might not be connecting. And I guess just psychologically as well, some people were still very apprehensive, weren't they, after the pandemic about connecting again? Some people, physical risk of the virus, but also a lot of people lost their confidence in being with other people as well, didn't they?
I was kind of joking about when it all ended, because I've always been a very social person. I think people were really worried about me in lockdown because I am so social, and obviously I was on my own. I call it my Lindsey loving. I had a great time. I loved lockdown. I mean, I kind of every now and again get a bit wistful of like, oh, maybe a fortnightly, maybe that'd be okay. Because I just
fortnightly retreat.
What was it called? Was it a circuit breaker? When they were like, let's have a circuit breaker. I was like, oh, a little fortnight, great. But I really enjoyed it. I really embraced it. I loved there was no FOMO. I just really enjoyed it. I just exercised loads, ate loads. The sun was out. Watched, I was in charge of the TV remote control because I'd just broken up with a boyfriend, so I was living on my own. So I thought, this is great. I really loved it. But when it was ending, and I thought, I was joking about I'm going to like miss people when I try and hug them. I'll be accidentally headbutting people because I've lost all depth perception as I got out the window.
Because it's that, do we lean in?
Like how do I do this? This is weird. But so there was that kind of element of how we're going to get going. And I really appreciate that. For a lot of people, it took them a long time to come out with us. Connected Brighton is 3 this April 2024.
Oh, we're going to bring that in. Yes, it's your birthday, isn't it?
It's our birthday. But it's not unusual for people to say, I've been watching you for a year. Because it takes such a lot to come and be like, okay, I'm going to do this, despite how easy I'm trying to make it, and with all the reels and all the footage, and sharing my own story, but it still takes a lot for people, and I'm very aware of that, and I try my absolute best to make it as easy for people as possible to come out and engage with us, because I know that we are missing this connection, and physical connection is so different to your point earlier of, yes, we've spoken to people all day, But the other thing that we're not doing is we're not disconnecting digitally. So we talk about working from home, but it was more living at work, because you can see your laptop wherever you are, depending on what your home was like. When I was in my big corporate and lockdown hit, we had to get our entire workforce home. You saw all the senior leaders in like very big plush houses or their own offices when we came onto a call. And then you saw people who were working on the phones, who were sitting on their bed and their pets and their kids sitting on their head. And you're like, this is a very different experience for people. And I'm not sure that we're paying attention to the physical impact as well as the mental impact that this is having on people.
Absolutely. You know, simple things like, as a psychologist, we always say when we're doing sleep work, for example, you know, do not have your work stuff in your bedroom. But during those lockdowns, so people had no choice, then all of those boundaries went. You know, as you say, it's a really simple thing, but that's quite profound, isn't it? Quite often you would just walk around and there's your laptop, it's there reminding you there's no break from it.
There's no break.
Which I think, and I'm really glad you brought a really important point in there, which I think I'm just going to go over again, because I'm hoping that anyone listening can really take this in, that it does take people a long time to do new things, doesn't it? So as human beings, we don't like change and transition. We like predictability. So it's really normal that we might have a bit of what we call threat mode about seeing something new. So I've noticed similar things with my project, that people will say, I've followed you for 6 months, and I've even got as far as the parking in the car and not getting out and coming to a walk and talk. And what you said, people might have followed you for a year, but just normalizing that, because sometimes knowing that other people are doing the same might just help them in taking that next step and reaching out.
I noticed in my own kind of, how do I interact with products and services and brands, like what makes me cross the line and what when don't I cross the line? And I've tried to learn from that to what will resonate with my audience the best, and the different channels that I can engage people. And I just know for some people it's going to take a while, because exactly to your point, your brain is designed to keep you safe, and so it will keep you doing the same thing you're doing now, because you're alive now as of today. So let's not change that, kids. Let's stay where we are.
It's doing its job, but sometimes it can be a bit of a pain in the way that it does it. That's all.
We need to say to it, we're okay, we're going to give this a try. And I always love it when people come and they have waited a year and then they have a great time. And I think, well, you know, you've done it now. It doesn't matter how long it's taken you. We're not going to focus on that. We're just going to focus on the fact that you've made it. And now that you've done it once, you know, you can do it again. And the great thing about that is the groups that we have, and because they're small groups and the way that we do stuff and where we do it, it always feels like it's a group of friends. You never kind of walk in and you just see a group of people looking really awkward and nobody talking. It's like loads of conversation,
and hands in pockets,
and fun. And it's, you know, very good at like wandering around and making sure that everyone's okay, moving people around. And I just love seeing it. My sister hosted an event for me the other day, and I popped in at the very end, and I loved it, because I was, from standing outside, I could see them in there, and they just were all laughing and joking. None of them had met before. And it just makes my heart sing that when you give yourself an opportunity to be vulnerable, the power and connection that can come from that is incredible.
I love that. I might steal that line, but just that, you know, that ability to, what we kind of sometimes say in psychology, is just leaning into the tricky stuff, because sometimes it can mean that you're moving towards your values then, because you're not battling it and avoiding, because that means you just miss out on everyday life, which is short as well, you know.
Yes, but this is my whole thing with starting a business. So if I hadn't have done this, if I hadn't have been brave enough, if I didn't listen to that voice calling me, what wouldn't have happened? You know, where would I be now? Would I be one of those people who I talk to regularly who's really unhappy in their corporate job with an idea for something that they'll do one day? I'll do it one day. I'm not going to do it now because,
that
you know,
elusive one day.
A million reasons here. Yes, exactly.
I
think of all the friendships and relationships that we've created through Connected Brighton, and I absolutely love seeing those. You know, some of our girls spent Mexico at New Year, some were in Miami for New Year. One of our couples is buying a house this year. I get added onto WhatsApp groups where people are arranging like club nights and, you know, watching sports. I think they feel like they're cheating on me if they don't include me in some way or other. But I just love it, because I just think you've connected for a reason, and it's because of how we do things. So whenever I get my imposter syndrome, I then look at what I've created and I think, no, this is the right thing to do. And I've had to push myself really hard, because from going to be like a senior leader in corporate to then posting all over my LinkedIn about, do you want to come play ping pong with me?
I saw the ping pong the other week. I thought, cool, I love a bit of ping pong, and the fact that you call it ping pong as well. I know. I like that.
Yes, exactly. But I used to just like shut my eyes and like, publish. Let's see what happens. And just
but do you know what I love? You're bringing that in now, that there's still that vulnerability there, but that's almost like your strength as well, isn't it? That it's, it's not a tick box thing. You're doing this because it means something to you, but with that will obviously then come some vulnerability because it means something.
Exactly. And people talk to me about that a lot, because I talk about my infertility really openly as well. And I've had people who've talked to me about that. So lots of men and women have reached out to say thank you for talking about this, because I'm not brave enough to talk about it yet, but it's so nice to hear somebody try to normalize this and to see your journey and what you've done with that adversity and how you've moved forward. But I think it's so important to do it. Someone said to me the other day, oh, you talk about it, but and how people treat you for it, so why do you talk about it? And I was like, because I'm educating people on how you should talk to someone. I did a post about things that people say to me when I say that I'm infertile that are really just unhelpful.
Things,
I know they might be meant from a good space, but actually you don't know that this is a bad thing, but you've assumed it's a bad thing. And for me, it's not a bad thing. It's been a good thing. So the first thing you should always say to someone if they say, oh, I can't have kids, is how do you feel about that? And then you've got
open and curious.
Be open and curious. Be interested in how that person feels, because you might be triggering them even further to then say how sad that is, because that might be something that's really hard for them to talk about, but it might be actually the best thing that could have ever happened to them. So just be cautious and be curious on naturally assuming. If people automatically feel sorry for me because I don't have children and I'm single, I don't know if you've noticed, I'm having a lovely time. So I really don't need your pity. And there's nothing, because when you're pity, then suddenly it does psychologically, you're like, am
what
I less?
Question does that?
Should I be pitied? Am I? Oh, I'm different, and different is bad.
That inner critic can rock up with all the what should
that stuff.
Question.
Whereas we're not here to all do exactly the same things, and our gifts are different, and what we have to offer is different. And I don't feel less of a person because I don't have children. I feel like I've been able to offer more in different ways to different people because of it. It's been a superpower instead of a kryptonite.
That kind of catching your assumptions, guys. We naturally do make assumptions as human beings. That's part of our kind of brain chemistry and how we function, but it's being able to catch that stuff before we engage.
Definitely. 100%. And we're not very good at it. We have like one script for most things, and
we do.
Just trying to break people out of those scripts. And we talked at the beginning about people are more vulnerable now than ever about sharing. But I think platforms like Instagram have really helped that, because when Not the Blueprint, which is still on,
I'm a huge Instagram fan.
I mean, I post back on Not the Blueprint now, and I share between that and my coaching profile. I'm happy to. The reason why I could do it in the beginning, because it felt anonymous. It almost felt anonymous. Although I had my picture on it, I wasn't directing that at my friends. Whereas Facebook was very much for your friendship circle. Whereas I needed people who were going through a fertility journey at some stage to see this, to see if it could resonate with them and if it could help them on their journey, whether that had been a success or that hadn't been a success. Wherever they were on that, I was a voice that could maybe be of benefit to them. I never expected any of my friends or family to even know about it, really. I just wanted it to be a channel that I could talk to the people that needed it, because I knew my social circle were not the ones that needed it. And I remember really panicking because of the algorithm. Suddenly friends and family were following, and I was like, oh, it almost silenced me a bit, because I needed that freedom to talk about it from a place of anonymity. And then suddenly it was like I was outed. And but it enabled me to sort of test my voice and to just be like, actually, if you're going to watch this, you're going to hear it all, and then you're going to get to know me better as a person and understand me more. And so you come on the ride. But it was never meant for them. So I think there's more platforms for us as human beings to share than ever before.
Absolutely.
And there's so much good that can come. I know there's some awful people who are sharing awful things, but for those of us that are doing it for good, I think it's incredible.
And remembering that, because sometimes we can get put off by the chance that there are other people sharing things, but what is in our control is what we post and who we reach and who we help with that. I'm going to find that as well. Perhaps if you're comfortable, we could put that in the show notes as well for people as well. So where do you see Connected Brighton going? Do you have a vision?
I do. So this year is very exciting. So we
That's shareable. It might not be.
no, we've got two big goals this year. So we've just launched our business club, so the Connected 100, where we are finding 100 of the best brands to promote across the city. Basically, we've created this really big voice over the last few years, and people listen to us, they trust us. You know, as a concierge service, we're often asked for our recommendations. So we're kind of creating our like online black book of the best places to go. So we're really excited to be doing our bit for supporting local. So we're growing the Connected 100 Club. We're growing our social club. So we do a social club event every single week. We do a business club social networking event every 2 weeks. We are loving being a force for good in the city. It's great. And then what we've also done is just created a really great business model that we can pick and put in a box and put it into other cities. So we're looking for people who want to have a connected wherever they are. And so that's kind of an enormous part of this year, is finding those people, telling them about us. I just got in the top 100 inspiring female entrepreneurs of 2020.
Yeah, congratulations.
Which is so exciting. So I really want to use the coverage from that and the PR from that to go and talk in other cities at networking events or business shows, and to be able to encourage people to follow their calling, and their calling might be to start a Connected, and I'd love to help them to do that.
Have that model all over the UK.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Absolutely. It is incredible. So there's kind of,
and because it'd be different, won't it, as well, and different, which is nice. It'll have its own personality in each place.
I always use the examples, which would be weird if it came true. That, you know, it might be a single dad who starts Bristol, and so he will think of things that I would have never thought about. We might have a couple in Edinburgh. They will think of things that I've never thought about, you know, and I'm excited to see where people take it. You know, what your marital status, what your age is, what your area is like, what are you like, you know, what do you want to take people through, and what journey is it there, and what's the business community like where you are? So actually, who are you going to be promoting, and what will your business club look like? I think it's really exciting, and I just love the idea of getting, you know, I'm a qualified coach, so I'm going to love getting all my licensees together and talking about what works and what doesn't work, and going to visit them and meeting their crowds and their communities. And so I'm really, really, really excited for that leg of the journey. And I know, you know, my experience so far is everything takes a lot longer than you think it's going to, but we're planting all the seeds this year to be able to get that up and running. I'd love to have some pilots by the end of the year, and even just testing some events in other cities, so people can just host it and just see
it
what
slowly and steadily sometimes makes a better model, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah, exactly. And I can't believe it's been 3 years. It just feels crazy. I remember some people saying to me in the beginning, or people are very negative, aren't they, to our point about we should all stay in our lane. They're like, most businesses fail the first year, and you know, it's going to take you 3 years. And
we should have recorded that bit, shouldn't we?
But it's I'm just so grateful to still be on this journey, and to see that there is a bigger vision for it. And you know, we are attracting new people into Connected Brighton all the time, and we have natural churn because people come, they find the friends they really love, and then they go. They have a great time.
But that's okay. Some people will get what they need, and that might be a short-term thing for long. It's that the model I really like. It's really flexible.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if that's why you've you know, that because there's your passion, and I can see that on your face when you talk, but also I see it in your social media posts. This isn't just something you do, you kind of live it, don't you? And I'm wondering if that combination helps. You know, people get what they need, but also that lovely element to just bring in again that this is about helping the businesses as well as the people. 100%. And the people behind those businesses, because they're humans and they have needs and hopes.
And definitely. And this is the thing that I really enjoyed about being an entrepreneur, is that the business community, and I'm hoping it'll be like this in all cities, but Brighton has been absolutely incredible. So we've always attracted a lot of business owners into Connected, because sometimes when you're just working so hard, you don't have time to plan your own social life, or you've had to make such sacrifice to get where you are that those relationships have changed. And so to be able to now say to our business club members, you automatically become a social club member, like come out, hang out with us. You also get to meet people that'd be great referrals for you. It could be future clients, because they're going to get to know you as a person and see how cool and fun you are. And you've got a real opportunity here to maximize your place in the city and who you are in the community. And I love that we do that. You know, you can advertise your brand in lots of ways, but those advertising avenues won't host networking events and nurture you. And you can go to networking events, which are great. You can meet those other people, but they don't advertise your brand, whereas we do it all.
Absolutely.
I feel like we've really nailed it in terms of like, why are we different and how are we different? And we're doing it because we really care. Like I'm Brighton born and bred. I love this city, and I want to see it thrive, and I want to be a force for good as part of getting us to be like the best we ever possibly can, and showing you the people that you might not know exist, and keeping Brighton boutique and unique, because, you know, since lockdown, hospitality has really struggled. well, all businesses have really struggled. Obviously, we work with hospitality an awful lot, and so many businesses that we've worked with over the last 3 years have gone. And so I really want to do
Incredibly
my
sad,
part.
isn't it?
To be, you want to be part of the solution, right? So that's.
And how much of that may have been preventable if there were more models like this?
Yes, exactly. So we really want to be true and honest in how we approach. And, I've got that whole thing about feeling seen, heard and special. That's whether you're a social club member or a business club member. That's how I want you to feel when you're
remember
part connected. Yeah, it's really important to me. And then as part of my personal brand, being able to share the story of what I've been through from that divorce and infertility, from corporate into entrepreneurship. And, I call my coaching program Authentic Power, because that's what's got me here. Is I finally decided I was going to listen to that inner voice, and I was going to follow my gut, and I was going to do what felt true to me. And I've been a success ever since I've done that. And sometimes it's not easy, because our brains are designed to not make us do that. And so I still have to fight my brain the way anyone else does. But I've learned how to do it, and I've got the tools around me now. And I want to help other people who want to go on that entrepreneur journey. And especially this year with the top 100 gives me a great platform to say, look, let me help you. If I can share my journey, if I can mentor or coach you, and I would love to. I'm spinning a lot of plates, obviously.
I was just going to say that kind of going to bring that in a minute. Like, how do you look after yourself? But when that inner critic rocks up and says, just hide under the duvet, it's all safe under there, don't do anything. But you're someone who is able to go, no, this matters. So what do you do to look after yourself? So if you're spinning all of those plates, because obviously when you're giving, that can be really good for your emotional health. So what you do obviously is very rewarding. Anything else you do need to keep an eye on, or do you for yourself?
Do you know what? It's really important for me, because I am very open, and I enjoy that, because I know that it brings up to other people. But there's different batteries. I have definitely burnt out a few times where I've realized, like, oh, actually talking about that drains a different battery, and that battery takes a bit longer to recharge. So I've had to learn about that rest and recover. So I have changed lots of different things in my lifestyle to sort of not drink as much, so that I can sleep better, and to fast so that my system feels good, and, put your own life mask on before helping others. But I massively overdo it a lot of the time, and then I have to rein it back in again. But I've learned how to read my body better.
Catching it, I guess.
Yeah, and I do the things that really I'm really close to my family. I'm very lucky they live just down the road, and so I have a really great relationship with them. And I love just lying on my sofa and watching trash TV. That's another favourite thing to do. I love sunbathing, so the minute the good weather's out, you'll catch me in my garden, and going on holidays. Just life is to be. My dad died of a heart attack when I was 50. He was 52 and I was 21, and it gave me this, like, you must make the most of life. Almost a complex, to the point that it's been a bit extreme, and people have said to me, you can just slow down as well, and it's okay to have a night in. But I really feel really passionate that we're here for a good time and not a long time, and it's good to rest, and it's good to nurture yourself, and that can also be part of having a good time. But don't miss these opportunities. Eat, sleep, work, repeat. That's not the game that we're here to play, because we're getting older every day, everybody. Just make the most of this while you can.
It's one of the things that kind of just struck me is that there's so much people can take away from this. We touched on emotional health, the kind of loneliness, isolation, cost of living crisis. What you do supports businesses, which then supports the people behind them and their emotional health. People get stuff from their businesses, knowing what connection is, a little bit about what connection isn't, that it's not got to be this tick box, one size fits all. You've given us so much, but if there was one, I always ask every guest, if there was one adversity takeaway, what would it be? That's my little signature move.
Oh, one adversity takeaway. I would say what you've been through doesn't have to define you, and you can use it for good. So I always say, like, I don't want to be the poster girl for infertility. I want to be the poster girl for transformation and resilience. So you get to choose your story. That's what I would say to people. And you choose whether you want to put your victimhood on or your survivor cape. I chose to put my survivor cape on and make a difference, and you can do the same.
I like that. So people that haven't already followed you, where do we find you? Where do you hang out on socials? Because we'll make sure we put these in the show notes for people.
So please come and look at us at Connected Brighton. So Instagram at Connected Brighton, and Facebook Connected Brighton.
All of this down. Yeah.
And connectedbrighton.com. And then you can follow my personal journey at Lyndsey Clay Coach and at Not the Blueprint.
I'm going to have to find that because I don't think I follow that. I'll be doing
It's
that
funny.
after this.
Sometimes people like a post from a long time, like a really long time ago, and it was like one of my healing posts, and it will make me read it. And sometimes I read them and I think, oh, I was really not in a good place that day. But I enjoy reading it to just remember the journey of how far I've come, and so proud of myself that version of me was brave enough to share it. Yeah, you can't hide the story.
So anyone who's not Brighton, can people who live outside of Brighton come to your events, or is it for people?
Anybody could come? No, we do have people come. We have people travel to come and see us, which is amazing. And obviously, if anybody wants to start a Connected in their area, oh my gosh, I would love to talk to you about that. Or you want to try some events with us in your area too, that would be fantastic. So yeah, I'm really keen to.
I have a couple of really regular listeners who are guests who are in different parts of the world. I wonder if they would start.
Yeah,
think about that, guys, if you're listening.
Absolutely, yeah, reach out.
Contact. Yeah. Brilliant. So the person that I know that's in Texas and the other one that's in Australia. I wonder if we can get connected out there. How cool would that be?
That'd be very cool. I always say, but our competition is Meetup, which is very different, and City Socializer, which is a different setup again. And so I think actually there's a big need for connected in this connection. So yeah, I'm down. I'm in. Let's do it.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you on. It's lovely. We've met before in real life, which is lovely because some guests I haven't ever met face to face, but I feel like I know them. I'd love to get you on again actually because I've got a couple of other ideas. So just through my personal journey, I think we need to cover fertility. That if you would be happy,
I would love to
talk about that at some point. I think.
I think fertility and infertility is such an important topic. So yeah, I'd really love to have that conversation with you. And this has been a real joy. So thank you very much. It's been so
nice. What a lovely way to spend Friday morning.
I know. It's easy like Friday morning over here. Yeah,
it is. It's lovely.
Thank you,
Thank you so much, Lindsey. It's been lovely having you on. And we can't wait.